Hello and welcome to Insiders, the TV podcast with me, Jimmy Mulville.
And me, Peter Fincham.
This is a podcast for people who love television and want to find out a bit more about what's going on behind the scenes in show business. Isn't that right, Peter?
That's absolutely right. And Jimmy, we're just talking about you're making at the moment another series, or is it two series of Trigger Point?
We are.
Now, the question I want to ask about Trigger Point. So Trigger Point, correct me if I'm wrong, it's for ITV, stars Vicky McClure, who's wonderful, and it's about bomb disposal people.
Yes.
So if you're making a lot of episodes, is the first question you have to ask yourself, how often does a bomb go off?
Yeah.
Because obviously a bomb disposal drama, if your hero is a bomb disposal expert, has a danger that at some point your hero just disappears in a puff of smoke.
Yes.
How do you get around that?
Well, it's like a rom-com.
Do you sit down at the beginning and say, 12 episodes, let's have 5 bombs go off?
Yeah, there's a kind of equation that we have up on the blackboard. How many bombs per episodes?
Yes.
Yeah. No, we don't do that.
You don't do that.
No.
There's also, you can have bombs, because the whole point is they are experts.
Yes.
And therefore the idea, ideally they diffuse the bombs.
That's right.
So you don't want them to go off. But do you not have a challenge there with the anticlimactic nature of the big build-up with the music and everything, and then, some robot goes across?
No, it's tense. It's
tense.
It's about tension.
Yes.
And Laura Washington, the character that Vicky plays, is tasked with keeping us safe.
Yep.
And so that's a good figure in a drama. It's someone we can rely on in a dangerous world. And she has her own burdens to carry. She's got backstory. She's got PTSD.
Yes.
And she's a brilliant actor. So she portrays all this sometimes in a look. And she's got a fantastic kind of strong look that she has.
She does good looks.
And then she goes off, and every now and again they'll go, "Oh, there's a bomb in."
Yeah.
But it's the provenance of the bombs. It's the reasons why people are planting bombs, and the writer Chris Brandon has come up with fantastic plots, which are themselves just very interesting human dramas about why people are driven. Because it's not just always a terrorist organization. It's not just always the external enemy. There are internal enemies or people with grudges. It's a whole list of people that you, thankfully, who might want to plant a bomb. But it's not bomb of the week, Peter, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I only get it. If you've got a bomb disposal scene, the tension is obvious.
Does it go off or not?
Does it go? There's only 2 outcomes.
And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. You pays your money. You take your chance, and you sit on the edge of the seat, and more will be revealed.
Okay, so we're going to do a slightly different episode this week because we're going to
sing it.
We're going to answer questions from our listeners.
Oh God!
We don't have any envelopes. We're going to plunge straight into questions, and the first question from one of our listeners is: what is the state of the audience sitcom? Is it a dying breed?
Okay,
Jimmy.
Well, yeah. I think I said before on the podcast, you get asked this question regularly by journalists saying, "Oh, is British comedy dying?" Of course it's not. But the audience sitcom, it used to be, when you think about it, when we were growing up, like 3 nights of the week, BBC would have probably a couple on each night. And they were all audience sitcoms. There wasn't a sitcom done without an audience. And it would be weird if you watched a comedy that didn't have an audience laughing at it. And then, I guess round about the turn of the century, you stopped having them. You had these single camera shows like The Office.
I think The Office was a game changer. I think The Office was the show.
But the Royal Family.
Royal Family as well. They both said, you don't need this.
Now, you remember our great friend Geoffrey Perkins?
Yes.
Who was a brilliant producer, produced Father Ted for us and many, many other shows. Became head of comedy at the BBC, and he said there was a real discussion about whether they should put a laugh track on the Royal Family. Mm-hmm. And Andy Harries, who's the producer, apparently railed against it. Well, that's what he tells you now, anyway. And they didn't, thank God, because the delicacy of the moments. You think, well, it would have sounded very weird. I know when you did Alan Partridge, you did it be in the 4 walls, but you had an audience there.
That was the second series, because in the meantime, The Office had come along and changed the game.
Yeah.
And the first series, I think I've got this right. Certainly the series that came before Alan Partridge is called Knowing Me, Knowing You with Alan Partridge.
Yeah.
That was done in front of an audience, but it would have been because it's a parody of a chat show. So you had the audience, as it were, for the chat show were the same as the audience for the comedy. So that kind of had a logic. And then come Alan Partridge, there was this strange thing of doing it. They looked like kind of packing cases in a studio. You couldn't see the performers, but there was still an audience out there. I remember we did Smack the Pony in the 90s, and Smack the Pony, none of it was performed in front of an audience, but we nevertheless booked a conventional television studio and audience and played the tape to an audience in order to get the laughter track that went on it, because the feeling was it couldn't play without a laughter track. And
so what happened then?
I don't know why taste changed. Oddly enough, I was only the other day playing one of Mel and Griff's old head-to-heads to one of my daughters, and I found it on YouTube, and because we were talking about
is that what you do to your kids? You get old shows that you've made, and you say, look, this is what your dad used to do when he was younger. I think I'm going to report you to some kind of helpline.
There was a reason. We were discussing an
Okay,
issue
all
or
right.
something or other. Said, there was a head-to-head about that. And actually, one of Mel and Griff is her godfather. No, it was written by Clive Anderson, who's her godfather. Right. So it's very good. But I watched it on YouTube with my daughter, aged 23. And as I watched it, I thought, oh, God, that laughter's too loud. It's so obtrusive. I thought Mel and Griff doing the head-to-head format where they sit
Quite whispery.
a bit like us, you and me here, sit opposite each other, just chatting to each other in those characters. It's quite subtly done. It's quite, as you say, quite whispery. And then laughter's blasting at you. And so maybe the audience sitcom, people tired of it because they thought the laughter was a bit artificial. There was always this feeling, which journalists would always say this, that it was canned laughter. And I never really knew what that meant.
That used to piss me off.
I know, because if it was canned laughter, we wouldn't have gone to the trouble of booking a studio, getting an audience, and recording a sitcom, painstakingly over many hours.
I think it's come from America.
I think it probably did.
Canned laughter came from America.
But definitely audience taste changed, and people preferred the mode of The Office and the Royal Family and many other things that have come since. But our listeners' question is there a way back? Do we still have an underlying love of an audience sitcom, and should we be making more of them?
Well, I don't know. I mean, because in America, they still exist. CBS still plows the furrow of the audience sitcom, and some of them do fantastically well.
Yes.
I think most recently, The Big Bang Theory came off the air a couple of years ago. But the outlier here is, of course, is Not Going Out.
Yes.
That's the elephant in the room. Is Not Going Out is the second longest running sitcom on British television, dwarfed only, I never thought I'd say this sentence in my life, dwarfed only by Last of the Summer Wine.
Oh, yes.
Which ran for almost like 300 years. It was launched during the 100 Years' War.
It was still running when I joined the BBC. I remember it came up for recommission, and my scheduler, a man called Liam Keelan, said, you could cancel it. And I said, can I? He said, yeah, go on, I dare you.
Yeah.
He's basically saying you daren't cancel it. So if Not Going Out is an outlier, run for 15 seasons.
It got a huge audience last week, got like 37% on a Friday night.
Amazing. And because Lee Mack is a very funny man, and he's also
brilliant.
there in Would I Lie to You and so on. Why is it the only one? Why should it be the only one? Why is it such an outlier?
Well,
I don't quite understand.
Is it the commissioner's taste? Because the truth is...
Well, is it the commissioner's taste or the audience taste? Because arguably the commissioner's taste should echo or match the audience taste. That's the role of a commissioner, to think
But
of
the
what
BBC,
audiences want.
John Petrie, I mean, we met at the Smoggy Queens.
Is it Petrie or Petrie?
Petrie.
I think this is about Alex Mayon.
Is it Ewan Petrie?
I think he's John Petrie.
John Petrie.
I think you've been getting his name wrong. He's a powerful man, Jim. I'll warn you.
Yeah, but he's a very nice man. He won't mind me calling him Johan Perters.
He used to work at TalkBack.
So, well, I'm glad somebody worked at TalkBack. So, anyway, I said to John Petrie, how's it all going? He said, I'm not getting enough big, broad family sitcoms.
Yes.
And the truth is,
said that to me
and,
as well.
And also, he wants them at lower cost. I have to say, if you build 3 sets and put an audience in front of them, and you get fantastic writers in, you could knock it out. You could knock out lots of very funny sitcoms. Now, you have to persist with an audience sitcom. Only Fools and Horses is a well-known story is that for the first 2 seasons, it kind of did okay.
It only got 8 million or something.
Yeah,
which
but
in those days wasn't very good.
Those days it wasn't. Well, I'm going to come. Yeah, in the third season, what happened was there was a strike, so they had to play repeats. So they repeated the first 2 seasons, and then segued into the third season, and the audiences began to lift off because they got used to the characters. They began to fall in love with Del Boy and Rodney, and so. But here and now, in this environment, we need immediate hits. Otherwise, they get pulled off the air.
I have to say, though, in response to that Only Use Fools and Horses was used as a kind of argument for every underperforming sitcom that said you need to give me a second or third
Well, now
series.
you're talking like a commissioning editor.
Well, I was a commissioning editor, but
I know you
occasionally
were.
you had to say, we're not going to go to another series because it hasn't quite worked.
And someone like me would say,
Someone like to say, Only Fools and Horses didn't work till the third series, but actually I think it did get about 8 million in its first series.
Yeah,
Because in
but-
those days that wasn't quite enough. But so obviously truth can be in any direction here. You know, there can be examples of.
you accuse me of lying.
No, I'm accuse you of selling, which may amount to almost the same thing. But you know, it's the role you were playing. You had a company to run.
Exactly.
You're going to accentuate the positive, aren't you?
Yeah.
We had one good review in the Warrington News. You're going to say
They're a tough
it
gig,
was,
the Warrington News.
It was a critical hit.
He's a monster, the guy, the TV review of the Warrington News.
You come in with a piece of paper, a quote from the Warrington News. This is the most brilliant sitcom ever.
But you know,
having crossed out the word "not."
You know, not going out nearly
Yes.
got cancelled after I think the third season. And I remember John Thurlow telling me this. He's the producer, and him convincing Jay Hunt to keep it on. And
Yes.
it turned the corner. I have to say, it's the third season rule, Peter.
Yes.
Suddenly, after the third season, it picked up, and
Yep.
now it's the second most longest running sitcom on British television.
But it is very odd that it sits as a complete outline.
Well,
isn't
it's
it?
written and
because
performed-
if people have got a taste for not going out, they'd have a taste for another one with, Lee Mack's a big star, but there's quite a number of big stars out there. If you could persuade the right big stars to do
I agree.
a big, broad sitcom, brilliantly written by writers, but then there's writers out there who'd love to write them. So what is it that stops it happening? I mean, maybe we should get John Petrie on as a guest,
Petrie.
or Petrie. We can start with his pronunciation of his name.
He should meet Alex Mahon.
He should, yes. And
Mahon.
say, you say this to producers, John, because he said it to us as well as to you, and I'm sure to many others. But what's the answer? Why? You know, the most loved sitcoms in history are mostly broad audience sitcoms, whether you're talking about Dad's Army or Faulty Towers.
And on the iPlayer,
or
they
the
still-
Vicar of Dibley, Yes Minister, shows like that. You know, people love them. People love them. So why don't they exist in the modern world?
Well, I think that Not Going Out is written and performed by one of the biggest comic talents in the country. That's helped. You know,
Yes.
I mean, and
Yes.
everybody loves Lee Mack. And so he's in the driving seat. And what, interestingly, this new season, he's moved the family on a few years, so the kids are much older.
Yes.
So suddenly...
Well, you had this issue with Outnumbered, didn't you?
Well, Outnumbered we did last year as a Christmas special.
Yeah. And
all
the
the
kids are
kids-
kids no more.
The kids are in their 20s.
Yeah.
And so Andy Hamilton and Guy Jenkin wrote a brilliant episode where it's Christmas Day and you and I have lived through this, your children come back for Christmas lunch.
But they don't believe in Santa Claus anymore.
They don't believe in Santa Claus anymore, but they still
Should
want
we say this on our podcast?
But they still want presents.
Yeah, they believe in presents.
My
don't
son
they? Yeah.
George, when he was about 7, he said, "Dad, can we go to Lapland and see Santa Claus this year in case I don't believe in him next year?" I thought he's going to go far, that kid.
He's a very smart,
He is going to go far, that kid. But look, audience sitcoms. I think if the BBC persisted and said we are going to put a brilliant audience sitcom on the air and persisted with it like they did with Not Going Out, and just bit the bullet and said, okay, we're going to leave this on for four seasons and see what happens. It's got to be good.
Well, okay, let's challenge that from another angle, because last week we were talking about Spitting Image being on YouTube. What if you launched an audience sitcom? Because you know, we can wait forever and a day for the BBC or ITV or Channel 4 to do this. What if you launched an audience sitcom onto YouTube?
Good idea. Let's do it.
You somehow, I guess I'm thinking, you got to mitigate the risk. In other words, if you were at risk for the total cost of an audience sitcom weekly on YouTube, you could bankrupt yourself quite easily. But as we know with comedy, it might be hard to sell to people at first, but it can have a very, very long tail. People can be watching it in 15 years. So like your kids watching Friends or whatever. The fact that it was made 20, 30 years ago doesn't bother them in the least. So is there some way that somebody very boldly could say, let's bring back the audience sitcom, but on a different platform? Not assume it has to be on BBC One.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think that how do you fund that? How does a producer fund that? You'd have to go to a sponsor to say.
Yes, you'd have to have a sponsor.
Yeah, so I'd have to have a family, maybe a family of stationers called Ryman's.
But
and
okay,
go to Ryman's and say, I'm doing a comedy about people who sell bits of paper.
But that's interesting. So I remember at the time when you did Father Ted.
Yeah.
And you obviously that was written by Graham Linehan and Arthur Matthews,
Yes.
and we knew them at TalkBack as well. They wrote for Mel and Griff, and we did a less successful sitcom called Paris with Alexi Sale. So we'd made a show with them, and I got approached by, I think probably through an advertising agency, who said they wanted to commission a sitcom or pay for a sitcom that they would like to be set in a bar in Ireland. And this approach was on behalf of Murphy's, the beer.
Perfect.
Yeah, but what's interesting, so this is
And the family are all called Murphy.
in the 90s. I sort of basically said, Graham and Arthur aren't going to do that. I mean, I asked them, and they said, no, we don't want to do that because that's kind
Distasteful.
That's distasteful. We're taking Murphy's money and blah de blah. But let us say that you had Murphy's or the equivalent today.
These days, you bite their hand off.
Well, no, I don't know if you'd bite your hand off, but then you have writers as talented as Arthur and Graham, and you said, okay, but we're not going to take this to BBC One, who couldn't have taken it for editorial policy reasons. Maybe a commercial broadcaster could have taken it because it would have been what's known as AFP, advertiser funded programming. But forget all the old linear channels. Murphy's money, a sitcom set in an Irish bar where nobody ever asked for a pint of Guinness. They always seem to ask for a pint of Murphy's.
Yeah.
Well, we'll live with that. And then you
or
put
they drink Guinness and then have some kind of poisoning episode.
Exactly.
Their stomach pump episode.
So you get the money from Murphy's.
Yeah.
They get the branding.
Yeah.
It goes on YouTube. Most importantly of all, it's funny and very good. And
That's the given.
Well, yeah, but that's the
No,
tough.
I'm saying
That's also the tough bit.
That has to be the bar of which you come.
Of course. But then they persist during the early weeks when nobody knows about it, but they get a bit of marketing kind of thing behind it and so on, and it grows. Is that a model that could exist, and would it be worth the compromise that comes with taking sponsorship money and therefore featuring?
Well, so you're saying that in order to take the shilling of Murphy's, you'd have to dance to their tune in terms of promoting their brand.
Yeah, but if Murphy's are enlightened
but they wouldn't give you
people,
the kind of notes that a commissioning editor would give you.
No, well, he who pays the piper. But if they're enlightened people, these Murphy's people, they will know that if a character comes into this Irish bar and says, give me a pint of your best Murphy's, it's my favourite beer with its fantastic head and it's better than that other one that I'm not mentioning, you're undermining the credibility of the script. So if they were enlightened people, they know you've got to keep, and there's a lot of very enlightened advertisers.
It's by association rather than by promotion.
Who pay for advertising that barely mentions the product.
Yeah. So it's the values of that.
Exactly. So let's say this is not people who are going to, kind of make it unsubtle and so on, but quite the opposite. I suppose my question is, could that work as a model? Well, would that change things?
I wouldn't mind giving that a go, because and also what you could say to the writers is you won't, you'll put, apart from the development period, there won't be the kind of level of notes you get when you go through a traditional broadcaster.
Yes.
So a no notes environment.
Yes, I mean you're still going to, you have written notes from producers and directors, and so on.
And some of the notes are helpful, but that's the usual complaint that writers have, is that they'll go through a process of, reiteration, like you're saying, rewriting, until you get to a process.
But are you going to say to Murphy's, "Thank you very much, we want your money, but you can't say anything about the scripts"? That feels optimistic to me.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Is do you just swap one master for another?
Yeah, I think that's
and then you have to dance to their tune. Because I know that when we've all made, when we were starting off, made adverts.
Yeah.
And the clients when you're doing
Client was right.
a humorous advert,
Yeah.
it was difficult because sometimes they didn't get the humor.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
but I think I think that's not. I think that might be a way to go. I would like to encourage traditional broadcasters to look at the audience sitcom again. Andy Hamilton, Guy Jenkins did write one in COVID. Kevin Lygo announced that he was going to not have half-hour sitcoms anymore. But
why would you ever make an announcement like that?
Well,
why?
I think
Surely, what you mean is never say never, because when a brilliant one comes along, you'll do it.
Here's what happened. I mean, I think it was in an interview. He said, "I don't wear the home of,"
Yeah.
So I read it and I emailed him that day to say, "Oh, I was interested to read what you said because I have a sitcom for ITV."
Yeah.
And it's only for ITV because it's actually got Brenda Blethyn attached. And as she's one of your big stars, I thought you should have a look at it first. And to give him his due, he said, send it over. Yeah. So he did, and he liked it because it was very funny. And it was called Kate and Koji, and it's about Brenda Blethyn running a cafe in somewhere like Hastings or somewhere like Margate. It gets no people coming in. It's seen better days. In the corner of the room is clearly someone who's not from around there. He's from Africa, and he's an asylum seeker. He happens to be a fully trained doctor, but he can't practice. But the word gets around the village or around the town that there's a doctor in the cafe, and because they can't get appointments with their local GP anyway,
they all come to the cafe.
And it was really funny about something edgy, and of course it launched in COVID and got nearly 6 million.
Yeah.
Second season, it goes back to normal.
Yep.
Down to 3 million, and then doesn't come back again. Now, my theory...
Was Brenda still doing Vera at the time?
Brenda was still doing Vera and loved doing this. We had a fantastic cast.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So it was a shame. It was nearly, but not... It was nearly,
but that's
no
not,
cigar.
But that didn't have advertiser funding in it, which is the model I'm talking about here. Because I also remember there's a quirk of the system in a commercial broadcaster that let us say that an advertiser wanted to pay for that. The people who would be less keen on it were the people who had the ad sales side of ITV, because they wanted the money to come through their door.
Yeah, and also
they never wanted the commissioning team to talk. It may have changed. They never wanted the commissioning team to talk directly to the advertisers, for fear that the advertisers would think, I don't need to pay for 30, 60-second spot ads. I can sponsor a program.
And also the other way around as well is when you go to a commissioning editor and say, oh, I might be able to get some advertiser funded input here, they don't like it either, because they feel, it still has to meet the quality.
But they don't want a third voice in the room. They don't want somebody else saying, here's some notes.
So these two departments aren't really joined up.
That's why I'm talking about,
companies.
could this be on YouTube, where you don't have the apparatus of a commissioning team that you have in the in the traditional channels. I mean, this is speculative. I don't know. For all I know, this is going on as we speak. But if we have an interest in the return of the audience sitcom, believing that ultimately, leaving aside the vagaries of fashion, audiences love a brilliant, as not going out shows, they love a brilliant audience sitcom. Maybe they just need to kind of find a new life in a new world.
But here we are again talking about YouTube.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, I think we did.
Okay, look, I don't know. We've answered that question. What is the question, to refer back to it, is what's the state of the audience sitcom? Is it a dying breed? Well, it has been a bit of a dying breed.
It's a rare breed.
It's a rare breed.
And, as with the osprey.
Yes, it's like the whales before they banned whaling. Yeah, and when they did ban whaling,
too many whales.
There's so many fucking whales.
You can't move for whales out there.
The ocean is now awash with whales.
You're bumping into whales right, left, and centre.
Exactly.
Too many whales.
Could the audience sitcom go the way of the whale?
Let's get the harpoon out.
That's our question.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so this is a question. What's the best and worst way to cancel a show or have a show cancelled? Is it always final? Can you ever bring something back after it's been killed off? Well, Peter, you have been the killer. You have been the man with the hatchet.
Yes.
Who has cancelled shows.
Yes.
How does it feel in the room when you're doing it?
Well,
you feel powerful.
No, you don't feel powerful. I hated doing it, I'll be honest, because I think, having been a producer for many years before I became a broadcaster, I knew exactly what it was like to get the news. So I think
How do you do it? Face to face, text?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. It's a bit like any relationship. Depends on the circumstances. And I do think that people on commissioning teams who've never been producers maybe have a kind of slightly different, in some cases have a different attitude to it and quite enjoy doing it, and
Yeah.
because it's a kind of expression of their power or whatever that they, and it also depends.
Sociopaths.
Let's be honest. It depends how fond they are of the people who make the program. Do they like them? Are they friends? It's harder to do with friends than it is with people who've shouted at you for years or whatever. But I never thought it was a happy thing to do. And I also thought it was a deep irony that the longer a program runs, the harder it is to do. And yet, of course, the longer the
harder it gets.
The longer the program's run, the more a success it's been. And so everybody should just be celebrating. But I would say, because we talk about this often, almost every week, about the transition from a linear world to an on-demand world. In a fully linear world, before streaming came along, a lot of programs, if I'm honest, outlived their natural life. And I think they outlived their natural life for this quite simple reason. If you're looking at something that's, say, let's in its 8th series or 10th series, and it's had a sort of heyday and it's in a bit of a decline, at the point at which you might cancel it, it's much easier to cancel that program than it is to find a replacement for it. And what you do replace it with might not do as well as the outgoing, even though declining program. So if you've got a lot of commissioning decisions to make, and there's this program that's, as I say, sort of towards the end of its days, the easy thing to do is to do, let's just do one more series. And and then, of course, you're avoiding the awkward conversation with the producer. And so the producer's going to say, yeah, we'll make one more series. You're avoiding, if you like, the challenge of replacing it with a new hit. And it's embarrassing if you cancel a program that's still getting 3 million, replace it with a program that gets 2 million. Of course it is. So I would say, and I'm sure we could look at this, I'm sure we've made them, I'm sure you've made them, programs that in your heart, I can think of an example. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. Lewis, the drama at ITV.
Yes.
By the end of Lewis, it was plain to me that the actors in it didn't want to go on doing it. They felt trapped in the part. One of them was Lawrence Fox, who was a interesting character, shall we say. He would give an interview to promote it saying, I've no idea why we're still doing this thing. I assume it's because the advertisers want it.
Yeah.
To which you think, thanks a lot for saying that in an interview. Yeah. That's really promoting the show.
He's lovely.
So everybody was going through the motions a little bit. And yet, of course, the figures were still good. So it felt like the logic thing. And if you can't, particularly in a commercial broadcaster, if you cancel a show, that the advertising, so people on the advertising sales side, they aren't thinking about how editorially strong it still is. They're just thinking, what audience is it delivering to me?
Yeah,
so you're killing off that audience.
But also, don't you get this thing called career commissioning, where a new commissioner editor comes in and wants to create a bit of space for themselves to create their own. So often you'll, as a producer, you'll hold your breath a bit.
Yeah.
When a new head comes in, you think, which shows are they going to cancel?
Well, also a new commissioner, if they haven't, done that job before, it feels so easy to say, I want to clear the decks.
I've got this it's a really nice moment for a producer when a commissioning editor came in. We were doing a show called Episodes, and it was in the 4th season, I think. It was coming to the end of the 4th season, and we had a new controller of BBC Two called Kim Shillinglaw.
I remember Kim Shillinglaw. She was very briefly the controller of BBC Two.
She was. She was. And she rang me up and said, we've all enjoyed the journey of Episodes.
That's ominous.
And I said, great. And she said, but I think we've come to the end of the journey. And I was able to say, well, I don't think we have. Because if you look at the budget, Showtime now are putting in 70% of it. And with a tax break, and David Crane, who obviously created Friends, and Jeffrey Clarick, who's co-wrote it with him, and Matt LeBlanc all want to do it, and Stephen Mangan and Tamsin Greig, I'm afraid we're continuing the journey. You're just getting off the bus. And I said, but why don't you...
But hang on, I want to drill into that.
So she couldn't cancel it, but
she could, but
she could cancel it on the BBC.
Did you still need money from it?
Well, no, because we could make the show.
You could make it without her money.
We could make it without her.
Then where would you broadcast it?
But I said, I think what I'd like to suggest to you, Kim, is you acquire it. And as we know, for those listeners who don't know about this, is that if you're going to co-produce a show, you pay a lot more as a broadcaster than if you acquire it. If it's already made and it's a ready-made show, you buy it as a kind of ready-made for the oven, you're basically going to pay a tenth of what you normally pay.
Yeah.
So let's say...
So what you're talking about is basically saying, stop being a commission, just make it an acquisition. It'll still be... The viewers won't know. They won't even care.
So
why would they care?
So what happened was, I said, so she said, oh, all right, let me think about that. And our price was, let's say it was £25,000 an episode. Let's say. So I think it was Shane Allen, who was the head of comedy, rang me and rather sheepishly said, look, I don't think we're going to pay more than £2,000 for something.
2,000.
It was something desultory.
Blimey.
So I wrote to Danny Cohen, who was director of television at the time, who had been to the read-throughs of episodes and loved it. Just loved the show. And why not? It was a brilliant show. And I said, I'm just letting you know, as the senior commissioning officer of the BBC, that this afternoon I'm going to ring up Stuart Murphy, who runs Sky Television, and I'm going to give him the next series of episodes to play on Sky. So upset am I by the way this has been handled, because I actually felt that episodes have been a really good show, and I was being slightly belligerent.
No.
Yes.
So you were breaking the habit of a lifetime there.
And in the end, we came to an arrangement where we got a slightly enhanced price on it. And then the BBC Two audience, who, there's over 1 million of them, could see the final series of episodes.
Yes.
In fact, they can watch it on Netflix now. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that that's a rare moment, because, as you say, as a producer, you are dangling on a string, and if the commissioning editor wants to snip it, they can snip it.
Yeah, and I would say usually when a commissioner's cancelling a show, you haven't got enough cards in your hand to have that conversation. Again, as with all things, and all things we discuss, are things changing? Generally speaking, back in the day, if a show began on one channel, on ITV, say, or Channel 4, it ended on ITV or Channel 4. Shows could not be migrated to other channels.
But famously,
but then they didn't have afterlives like they have now on streaming platforms. Also, dramas, comedies were fully financed from one source, whereas now we need to operate a little bit more like film producers have done for decades, which is to get a bit of money from here, a bit of money from there. The Chelsea Detective that I make has got 3 different sources of money. Acorn, who get the English language territories, ZDF, who get the German rights, and BBC Studios, who get a lot of other territories. And we wouldn't be able to make it without those 3 parties all agreeing to making it.
But as you said about, when a show is cancelled on one network, it's dead. Of course, there are
exceptions.
And the most famous one, right, was Men Behaving Badly.
Yes.
It was cancelled by ITV, had Harry Enfield and Martin Clunes.
Yeah.
Harry didn't want to do the...
Neil Morrissey came in, BBC brought it.
And Hartswood migrated it to BBC One, and it became the biggest sitcom on BBC One.
Yeah.
I mean, so there are no rules.
But Hearts would run in those days by a legendary figure, Beryl Virtue, who was a brilliant operator.
Yeah.
And so Beryl had the balls, if you like, to go to the BBC and say, this can work, ITV are mad, and they believed her. It's a little bit like your story about episodes. Actually, I cancelled the show that Hartswood made, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was a sort of...
They'll remember.
Well, they will.
They will remember.
But it was
It'll be up on the wall with your face next to it.
This is a slightly self-serving anecdote. It was...
Really?
It was a sort of attempt to do Benidorm set in Margate, and damned if I know what it was called. I can see Owen's furiously Googling, or is he playing Hangman on his phone? I don't know. But it ran for one series, and it was funny, but somehow without that kind of sunshine magic of Benidorm, people didn't come.
Yeah.
And so we did decide to cancel. It was quite painful. And I wrote an email to Beryl and to Sue Virtue, her daughter. Sorry. And she wrote back to me saying, Peter, I've had many shows cancelled over the years. That is the nicest email I've ever had from somebody in the process of cancelling a show.
When you cancelled my show...
But, when I say stick it up your arse, you bastard.
No, you said...
That's it, Jimmy.
It was the worst week of my life with Ben Miller.
Are you talking about the show or the week when I cancelled it?
No. And you said to me, this is my favourite show that I'm cancelling.
Well, there you are. You see, I'd always try to soften the blow.
one of the questions is it always the end when they cancel it? And of course, we had a format show called Room 101.
Yes.
And Room 101, I have to say, it kind of...
It seems to go like a sort of yo-yo. Went away, came...
Well, it was...
Boomerang, rather. Went away, came back, different presenters.
Nick Hancock did it first.
Very funny man.
Then Paul Merton took over.
Very funny man.
And it was on BBC Two. And then
Frank Skinner.
And then Roly Keating cancelled the one-on-one interview.
Yes.
On the grounds that, I think he was the new commissioning editor. He wanted to do different things. Fair enough. And I kept watching in the succeeding year, the following year, I kept watching Room 101 lookalike shows.
Yes.
That were kind of not... So in the end, I wrote to him saying, I got it completely wrong, Roly. I didn't realise if you want shit versions of Room 101, I can do those if you like. And another bridge built.
Roly Keating was controller of BBC Two when I was controller of BBC
Very
One.
nice man.
Very nice man, very good colleague. And we used to have to go to the LA screenings to see whether we could buy any programmes. And I've got a vivid memory turning up in LA with Roly, and it's like when you arrive in LA, you're exhausted after a long time.
Oh, I think everybody listening will think,
everybody,
when you arrive in LA, man,
those
it's so
business class
tiresome.
Seats. We get in a cab and we go to our hotel.
Oh, that LA hotel thing.
And it's quite a nice hotel.
Yeah.
And we go up to reception and they say, "Hi there, have a nice day. What's your names? Mr. Keating, Mr.
What,
Finch."
from Cardiff, these people?
Mr. Keating. And who, for whatever reason,
Right.
the person behind reception assumed we were a couple. It was surprisingly hard work to convince the person behind reception.
Was Roly offended that you wouldn't sleep with him?
We know the person behind reception was offended. They'd got it in their mind that here was a couple arriving from England, who'd just flown in and needed therefore a room together. And we had to say, no, we're just work colleagues.
But by the end of the week, we might be a couple if things go well.
I don't know whether we're disappearing down a rabbit hole.
Listen, let me
Will
finish,
this make the edit? Me and Roly.
Let me finish my story.
Together at last.
Okay, so
I just want to put it out there. He was a very nice colleague and a very nice man.
He is a very nice man,
but not so nice that I wanted to share a suite with him at the Beverly Hills Hotel. No. Not that we were staying at the Beverly Hills Hotel. This was on BBC budget.
Although had he kept Room 101, I would have definitely done that with him. So to finish off the Room 101 thing, years later, I pitched Room 101 again to Danny Cohn, but this time on BBC One, where he was controller.
Right.
And we said, we're going to change the format. Frank Skinner will host not just one celebrity putting their things into Room 101. It'll be competitive. There'll be 3 celebrities.
Yes.
And in each round, they will try and argue like a bit of the balloon debate to get there. And it worked really well for 4 or 5
call it
seasons.
Room 202.
It's not always the end, but sometimes it is the end. And if the brand is strong enough, I think sometimes after a few years where it's been lying fallow and being enriched by the passage of time, you can relaunch a title.
And would you say that also proved the point? To be a successful independent producer, as you have over the years, you need to be opportunistic.
Yes. You
need to be determined. Some would say shameless.
Yes.
Yeah, you basically...
Yes, my middle name. All right.
Well, look, I think we should stop now before somebody cancels this podcast.
Yeah.
I hope if they do so.
Well, they're self-cancelling, aren't they?
I hope they'll do it in a kind way.
Yes, they will. You send an email to yourself, because apparently you're the master of the kind shiv between the shoulder blades. I didn't even feel the knife going in. Peter was so lovely about doing it. Oily bastard.
That's all for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If there are any questions about the world of television that you've always wanted to ask, send them our way. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do listen to Insiders, the TV podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.